JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. May 14th, 2024, 8:54 on this fine morning, about 36 minutes to the open. Just gonna be really quick. We had the PPI numbers come out this morning, a tad hotter than expectations. Futures tumbled and have since reversed course, but the story isn't about that. It's not about the CPI data tomorrow. It's about the GameStop craze, right? It's back crazy. Roaring Kitty comes on Sunday night, posts his little tweet, and he's just posting about movies, and it's causing a complete distortion in the markets. I wouldn't call it distortion per se, but in lockstep with GameStop, you have all these other names that have a high short interest squeezing because you have folks who are worried is their stock next, right? If you have a large part of your a large short position and a large percentage of your hedge fund or your portfolio is allocated to a short position in one of these names, like the GameStops, the AMCs, the COS, trying to think of all the other names, but there's a whole slew of them, and it seems like it's like a basket of stocks that just go because either someone is in most of those as a short trying to cover, or it's a lot of reactionary um, mechanisms going on. People trying to cover before a dreaded squeeze might hit their stock. So interesting stuff. The S&P was up 7 days in a row. We closed pretty much flat yesterday. I mean, the SPY closed green, but the S&P was down. Nasdaq was higher. Uh, Almost don't want to see a 7, 8 day winning streak heading into the CPI number tomorrow. I'll get concerned if the CPI data comes in hotter than expected. I would put like a 80% probability we trade down to 5, 12, 15 or so on the SPY. Hopefully that won't be the case. So let me get into some of the individual names. I posted on Twitter, well, not Twitter, FinTwit, regards to iRobot. I'll talk about that in a second. But Trupanion, just a massive squeeze yesterday, up 19%. Actually, was it 17%? No, 19% on no news or catalyst, 45% short interest. So I don't know if that's a sympathy move. I guess some of it is. Someone also on FinTwit tagged me and said that the filing for Rowlings, who was the founder of his $500,000 insider buy, was actually a sale. So if you look at the filing, it almost looks like he sold because it says it's a purchase, but then in the footnotes it says he sold at certain blocks. So I hard to, and I'll have to recheck the filings. Didn't have a chance this morning. Makes some great points. So it gets me a little concerned there. But I look and I don't know if I ranted yesterday, the day before, but Rowlings has had a 10.5B1 plan since 2008, 2000, excuse me, 2018, 4,000 shares every 1 week or 2 weeks. And didn't matter what the price was. He sold some at $12. There was some at $130. So to think that all of a sudden he leaves, hands the reins over, and then he's going to post a $20,000 insider sale, that's not part of this plan. Needless to say, my calls, which when the stock was trading at 18 bucks post earnings, after its earnings report that after hours, and then the next morning, it went from $18. My calls I thought were toast, and then it was up in the 30s yesterday. So here it is gapping higher. I was actually looking at 35 strikes, but I don't know if this move is more just based on people a short squeeze, or is it on the underlying story? And I think it should trade 35 or so. Fair value 35.40. So I don't know if the risk reward is there on Trupanion to add more strikes, but happy to be able to lock my calls and get some nice profits when only a couple days ago those didn't look so good. So that's Trupanion. Fiverr, only a 9% short interest on that name. That stock has rallied since its earnings. I have the May strikes. I did some later dated July strikes. Goldman Spectacular came out, upgraded the stock, or at least their price target yesterday. Stock traded up near 25 over its 200-day moving average. I think it's on a crash course with 30 bucks. I'll probably close the last of my May strikes off just to take that risk out because you never know. A couple of days to expiration. I don't want to see any kind of pull and the premiums come out. But I'll probably lock the rest of May in. Just hold my Julys. Those are free. Locked those calls in yesterday for 100%. Just a great story. And, I keep ranting about it. The big pull from its highs, or not the entire pull, was based on this fear that AI was going to destroy their business. And now, like I said it last year and the year before, that AI is not only is it going to be a tailwind, it's going to be a boom for their business. So we'll see how that all plays out. So that's Fiverr, iRobot, which is hitting 1450 here in the pre-market. If you saw my tweets and if you've been in the chat room since 2020 or 2021, back in the January of 2020, At the end of 2020, I think into 2021, when we had the meme craze with GameStop, you had Plodgett. I forget what his name was. He got his fund got blown up, so he was forced because of GameStop to liquidate and then cover. And then he had this whole big bankruptcy. It was a whole big thing, but it caused, similar to what happened yesterday, distortion in the market. Stocks that shouldn't be rallying as much as they were, they did. And he had a huge short interest in he had a huge short position in iRobot. He was forced to cover. So I had calls for iRobot for their earnings. I had the 105 calls. I think the stock was trading in the 90s, 99 or so. They had earnings that week or the week after. And then all of a sudden, what happens? This whole distortion of markets starts happening. And then iRobot goes from 105 to 110 to 120. And then it starts, once it's at 140, I'm like, I got to be almost stupid not to lock my 105 calls in that expire in like 2 weeks. It just doesn't make sense. So I got them at like 68 cents. I sold them at 40 something bucks. And then sure enough, what happens the next day? iRobot is at $195. So the calls that I got at 68 cents were $95. So, I mean, you do the math. If you just got 10 contracts, 680 bucks into $95,000 just overnight. So, or 90,000. Uh, I'm not saying the same thing's going to happen here, but you take a look. They had this deal with Amazon that fell through, and that was at a substantially higher valuation. There was some FTC, not some some the Eurozone didn't like about, I guess, monopoly, anti-competitive things. And then it dropped all the way into the eights. And then their most recent earnings last week, they have a new CEO, talked about a turnaround. The issue is they have a huge, well, a $250 million of debt payment that has to go out. And I think that's some of the reason people think it's going to be a zero, because the company doesn't have the money to pay it. I have to dig a little bit more, but I think if you look at the chart on iRobot, I think there's plenty of gaps to fill on the way up, 20, 22, 26. So, it wasn't a name I was really looking at the open yesterday. So it was kind of I wouldn't call it an impulsive play, but I said, wow, this is going to move just in sympathy with the short names. Got some of the 14 strikes, and then I went and added some strikes at the next week. I may look for some later dated strikes because I think it's going to move on its own merits, even taking away all this short squeeze mania that's going on. So that's iRobot, Trupanion, Fiverr, VKTX selling off yesterday. It's frustrating. Uh, Still looking for some later dated strikes there. Not going to talk too much about EMVX. I mean, all the way up to what 980 yesterday, I think it went up to. All the way back, closed 972, and then it closed at 878. So it reversed $1. I mean, a 15% reversal from 11 o'clock. My thoughts. I'm not going to go on a rant there. Maybe it's the biggest battery innovations since, the biggest innovation in tech since sliced bread. I don't know. Maybe it is. That's how you would think it gets discussed. I think it's a lot of moving parts. And yeah, so that's that. I'm trying to think of some of the other names I've been looking at. Oh, SE Limited report earnings this morning. It was kind of a mixed bag, but their outlook looked good. Stock is gapping up about $4, but the premiums on the calls are probably going to get crushed. The implied move was higher. I may look for some calls to play for a move over $70. Alibaba reported earnings this morning. Another one mixed bag, beat on revenue, EPS miss. They talk about dividends. They have so much cash, stock buybacks, and the stock is still at a historically low right now. At some point, this thing takes off. You would have to think, but here it is at $80. And what that does, it pulls down Baidu. So Baidu is a little tough here. I keep talking about that 110 level. It's holding it. It's a 110.93 here. They report earnings Thursday. Do I want to add some spec calls? I'm not sure yet, so I'll probably just hold the line on that. Dell has their event next week in Vegas, and then they have their earnings on May 30th. I love Dell. Thankfully, I didn't add calls yesterday, but if it holds 130 or so, let me see where it is. It was just at 131. Well, 130.55. So I'll be patient. If it falls down here, I'll probably wait. We have CPI tomorrow, possible binary event for markets, so it doesn't make sense to just add something until some of the uncertainty clears up with the CPI data. And I think that's it. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. CGC and ACB are heading higher this morning, but it's like my CGC calls expire. Well, just a couple left, expire Friday. I would assume, pending any crazy large move, I'll probably add some more calls before the end of the week on that one. Trying to think of some other sympathy moves. Yeah, I think that's about it. VKTX, SE. Yeah. Oh, turn, right? So turn all the way up to 617. They announced their update yesterday, and then it kind of broke back under six, chopped around, closed at 589. Really like that one to trade into the sixes and sevens, and possibly at some point catch some FOMO. Added more strikes already. I'm probably just going to stand pat on what I have for now, and at some point I'll revisit and go from there. Let's have a great day, folks. I'll try to get back on audio later. Rock and roll.